Imagine this. You're standing behind the safety of your fortress walls, watching the enemy army in the distance. Suddenly, something starts creeping toward you. It's low, wooden, and covered, like a strange animal gliding across the earth. You squint. Is that a siege engine? The Romans called it the MUSCULUS, which oddly enough means little mouse. But this was no cute creature. It was one of Rome's most effective, underrated weapons of siege warfare, and it terrified those who saw it coming. In Latin, musculus can mean two things: muscle and mouse. Strange, right? But for Roman engineers, the name made perfect sense. Just like a mouse, this machine was quiet. It hugged the ground. It moved with a purpose, and always toward its target. To the enemy, it looked like an odd box inching closer. But to the Romans inside it, it was survival. They weren't building some poetic metaphor. They were building a machine of war that could crawl right under your defenses. Our best source for this mechanical oddity is Vegetius, a Roman military expert who wrote De Re Militari. He didn't just talk about tactics. He described the machines that made Rome's conquests possible. The musculus was essentially a mobile shelter. Built from heavy timber, with a thick, protective roof, it allowed Roman soldiers to work directly under enemy walls without being torn apart by arrows or stones raining from above. It was tough, it was clever, and it was just the beginning. You might wonder, what were they doing inside that box? Simple: building roads. Not for walking, but for war. Siege towers, those massive rolling attack platforms, couldn't just cruise over uneven terrain. The Romans had to level the ground, reinforce it, and prepare it for the final assault. All of that had to be done under constant enemy fire. The musculus made it possible. It was a mobile construction shelter creeping closer and closer to the fortress as Roman hands dug, hammered, and leveled the way forward. Of course, enemies weren't just standing around watching. Their first instinct: burn it, and they tried. Fire was one of the oldest tricks in the siege defense playbook. But the Romans knew this. They coated the musculus with fire-resistant materials, wet hides, layers of mud, or even metal sheeting. Anything to stop the flames from catching. The roof became a shield, not just from arrows, but from one of the deadliest threats on the battlefield: fire. This wasn't just some theoretical tool in dusty scrolls. Julius Caesar himself wrote about the musculus in commentaries on the Civil War. He mentioned using one that was over 2 meters long, about 6.5 feet. That might not sound huge, but remember, it only needed to fit a few men working in tight quarters. A compact, focused force drilling into the heart of a city's defenses. Even Caesar's mention shows how important it was, not just in theory, but in the heat of real Roman warfare. And it wasn't one size fits all. Some musculi were likely bigger, others smaller. Some adapted for different terrain or targets. Rome was famous for customizing its war machines to fit the situation, and this was no different. But every version had one mission: get close, stay alive, break the wall. There was something terrifying about the musculus beyond its function. Picture this: you're inside a fortress, watching this strange shape inch forward day after day, no matter how many flaming arrows you launch or how much rubble you drop. Never stops. It doesn't flinch. And behind its wooden walls are men, Roman soldiers, digging, building, pushing forward. The musculus wasn't just an engine, it was a message. You can hide behind your walls. Rome is still coming. The musculus may not be as famous as catapults or siege towers, but it was one of the cleverest weapons in Rome's arsenal, combining stealth, strategy, and brute force in one crawling machine. And it worked. Want more forgotten tech from ancient battles? Click the next video. We're just scratching the surface of what Rome really built. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with someone who thought ancient warfare was boring. See you in the next one.